And we're back again this week. This week, we're talking about a key foundation topic in the world of pre-production, and that is time. This video is all about time, especially for pre-production. Now, it's true in your business, you need time to do basically everything. Time is your most valuable asset. It is the thing that you cannot out-gamify. Last week, we talked about pre-production basics, and I asked you to raise your hand if you had ever sort of flamed out in your projects. And this week, I'm going to ask you to raise your hand if you have ever simply run out of time, or you've miscalculated the time, or you underestimated how much time it would take you to produce your podcast, to produce your YouTube videos, to produce those email newsletters, which we all know are super, super important, or how much time it takes to actually be visible on social media regularly every single week. So all of these marketing activities, they get sold to us in really fancy programs. Some of those programs are excellent. Some of them are total junk. But in order to know what you need, instead of just reacting and buying the best sales pitch that comes to you, learning how to build in more time for yourself so you're not rushed in any way, shape, or form is truly the key to a long-lasting business that makes you money, and the content that you need for that business to make money. That's what we're talking about today. For all of my spiritual entrepreneurs who work with me, it is that one thing that you can't out-manifest. You are in a human body, having a human experience, working through linear time. So for all of the quantum thoughts out there these days, I want you to put that on a warm back burner right now. Get into this human flesh suit if you need to pause this video and do some grounding meditations to get in your body and be here fully present as a human. That is what I want you to do today. And even for my non-woo-woo peeps out there, you might be listening to that going, huh? What are you talking about, Mary? And the truth is that so many of us who love doing creative projects are highly, highly empathic and empathetic people, which means we feel a lot of things. It's really easy to check out of your body, stay up in your headspace, and not necessarily be here and be present, which separates you from the concepts around time, how to utilize time, and how to maximize it to your advantage, which is probably creating a lot of problems when it comes to your production process. So when I'm working with people inside of my business, I will frequently ask them, okay, what's the idea? What's this thing that won't let you go? And then the next question is, what are your time blocks that you work with during the week? What is the structure that you give yourself to operate within in your business so that you know you have dedicated production time for that idea? It can be an email newsletter. It can be a podcast. It could be social media posts, like building a huge following on TikTok, for example. It could be being here on YouTube. We all know that all of these activities require your time. Anyone who's throwing together content at the last minute is going to end up with a product that is not reflective of the vision you had in your head, and it's not going to have the same reach and impact that you would hope for. I think the one time most people do consider time as the number one system that they need to build in their businesses for producing content is when they're building something like a launch funnel. So maybe you're putting out a webinar and it leads people into a series of emails, and then there maybe are some Q&A calls or some challenges that you run or something, but your cart is open, you're selling a thing. Eventually the cart is going to close, and there's this entire funnel in which you acquire your customers, your paying clients. So if you understand how that is constructed, you can apply those exact same principles to producing your weekly or monthly or quarterly content. I actually love the idea of planning to plan. So if you know that you're going to put this together, what you want to do is actually put some dedicated time on the calendar for yourself to work on planning. One of my favorite hacks for this is to book yourself like a personal retreat, or if you have any creative partners you work with, invite them in to a little mini retreat day or a retreat weekend or week or however it is you want to do it. Make it a little bit special. Be comfortable, however that means for you. If you do better when you're wearing good clothing and you feel really good about yourself, because we all know you show up differently when you put on real pants. And since COVID, this understanding has never been more true. So if you know that that is you, make sure that you build all of that into your retreat time so that you show up as the best version of yourself. While you're planning to do the planning, what you're going to do is you're going to start talking about time. You're going to ask yourselves, how much lead up time do we need before we launch, say, the first YouTube video on our channel? Or if you're doing podcasts, a really common thing is to launch a podcast and have a launch week where, let's say you are a weekly podcast, but in your launch week, you'll have an episode come out every day for the first 5 days. And that way you get a lot of momentum going. So you know that there's going to be this date that you want to start. And from there, you can start reverse engineering. Well, what needs to happen before we put out all of that content? And this is the thing. Every single one of us, I don't care who you are. I don't care how experienced you are. I don't care how fancy you are. I don't care how much money you've got in your business budget. You will guaranteed underestimate how much time it takes to do the thing. So some of you in here will have more money than someone else, and you can literally throw money at a project. And even if it's a hot mess, you have enough money to throw at that project, and to solve the problem, you'll just hire a whole bunch more people and you will get that thing done one way or another. If that is you, then you can probably skip the rest of this video because it isn't going to apply to you. You will probably always just throw money at your problems. And if that works for you, seriously, congratulations. For the rest of us mere mortals who don't have unlimited budgets, we don't really have that luxury. And not only that, but it's kind of wasteful. It can get your production for the long term onto a really bad footing, because then you'll think that you can just sort of fill in the gaps by spending a whole lot of extra money when you could have systematized it from the beginning. And to fix the process that you work in after you get all of the gears in motion can sometimes actually cost a little bit more money, because now you have to retrain people that are helping you to do work differently, or maybe you need to switch providers or something. So while you are planning to plan and you reverse engineer how much time you think right now to the best of your ability, how much time you think it's going to take you, you're going to take that amount of time. Let's say it is 1 month, and you're going to double it. And you're going to say, okay, let's give ourselves 2 months. And as you get through the first month of production, you're going to see exactly where you land in all of this. And if you need to double it again at that midway mark when you originally thought you would be done, you can then make a better accurate determination. Do I actually need to double it again and make this timeline 4 months instead of 2 months in total? And if you do, you have the ability to make that adjustment. So many entrepreneurs fall down this dangerous rabbit hole where they get really excited about an idea and they broadcast it to the world, and they're like, I'm going to launch a podcast next month. And you've done none of the work to even start working on that podcast. So before you do that, I want you just to keep that idea to yourself for just a little bit longer and do the planning to plan portion so that you can have a more reasonable expectation for yourself. Chances are there's a lot of things that you don't know, which means you're going to be researching some things. You're going to look up some information. You're going to find out, how much does it actually cost to have someone edit my episodes for me? Or how much does it actually require for me to do this myself? But what is that time requirement? And that's going to start showing you what you do in the production process to get you to the launch. But then after that, it's going to show you what your regular production needs are going to be. And is that reasonable for you? Can you afford it, whether you're paying people to do the work for you, or can you afford it in terms of your own time and energy, which is very valuable and will take up more space from you doing other revenue generating activities. So this video is not going to cover making money from your content, which is definitely a thing. We're not going to cover that in this video. So it's not to say that you're not making money from the content you produce, but the reality is just because you made something, it doesn't mean that people are going to automatically show up and watch it, pay attention, or let alone pay you for some portion of whatever it is that you're doing. That is the cold, hard reality. But the next reality moment is that you always are going to need regular time to produce content. In my last video, I gave you the secret of what happens. What happens is that so many people start ideas, and there's so many, it's like a marathon. You see this big crowd of people at the starting line. And as the miles tick on, more and more people drop out of that race. And if you can stay in the game of producing your marketing materials long enough and not burn out in your business, there is a tipping point where eventually there are so many fewer people around you at your level, you will automatically stand out. The goal is to get there. And if you can get there, then you will learn a lot about yourself. Your business is going to be stronger for it. You're probably going to go through a couple of evolutions during the process of getting to that point, and you're just going to start to become this expert in all the things that you do. That comes from having secure time blocks and a solid creative habit. So creativity is not this fly by the seat of your pants. One day I have this great idea and I just make something, and then it's like, where does it go after that? That's not actually creativity. That's like a spark of inspiration. But true creativity is born out of a habit. There is a book that I love. I recommend it to all my clients. I'll make sure to put the title in the video description below this video. It's by Twyla Tharp, the choreographer, and it's called The Creative Habit. And she describes this process of training your body, mind, and spirit to be ready to produce content and creative things on a regular basis. And so it doesn't become this thing where you end up with writer's block or creator's block. You don't end up in this uncomfortable position of like, oh, I can't summon my creativity right now. Because the truth is when you are a business owner and you have to make content for your business, you don't really get that luxury of, well, I think I'll put aside all of my paying clients who have appointments booked with me today because I suddenly got inspiration to write this script for this video. That's really not how that's going to work in real life. So you're going to have to train yourself with some boundaries inside of yourself, some structure inside of yourself to start creating things. And you do that through time blocking. You do that through creating a schedule that works for you. One of my favorite ways to start figuring out a schedule, if you do not have one, or if you've been operating in a way where you're like, this schedule, this life I'm living is not really working for me right now. I really love taking Post-its on a wall, or you can use a large mirror, or you can use a large window, whatever sticky surface works for you. Even a tabletop will work if you've got a large enough table. And you're literally going to make yourself a grid. You're going to have your days of the week at the top, whatever you like to start your week with. I like starting it with Mondays. So I start with Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and then I've got my weekend on the end, Saturday, Sunday. And then on the left-hand side, just like a grid, I'll start with 6 a.m., 7 a.m., 8 a.m., and you can change those as you want. If you want to split those into half-hour chunks, you can do that as well. And what you're going to do is you're just going to take Post-it notes and you're going to start filling in the gaps. What happens during certain times? When do you wake up? When do you go to bed? How do you maintain a sleep schedule? Because if you're not sleeping and you're tired, I got news flash for you. You're not going to produce a whole lot of anything in your business. It's going to be really, really hard. So you're going to go through your schedule. You're going to figure out, when do you eat lunch? When are the best times for you to talk with people during the week as opposed to quiet time to concentrate? When are the best times for that? And then as you lay that out, you're going to live that schedule for at least 1 month. You're going to give it a good old college try, and you're going to make sure that you try to honor that schedule as much as possible. And what you're going to do is pay attention to how much do you naturally gravitate towards the times of day that you already identified. So I had a client long time ago, and this client was so convinced that because they had an empty block on Wednesday evenings, that was the best time to write their newsletters every week. So as the month went on and they got into their schedule, they found that they weren't writing anything on Wednesday evenings, but they were writing those newsletters on Monday nights instead. And my question for them was, why not make Monday nights your newsletter writing time? Why do we have to hold Monday nights for this other activity when actually the better thing is to write your newsletters, which are really important for your audience? So you can start to pay attention to that yourself. This is going to start helping you unhook from all the other dialogue out there. There are so many influencers who tell you to do miracle morning, take a cold bath in the morning, to, go to bed by a certain time. And I tend to work with a lot of night owls, and I just got to tell you, there's a lot of us out there. And when you're a night owl, giving yourself the freedom to recognize when your brain is actually on, but to figure out a schedule so that you're not exhausted because you're trying to get up too early in the morning, that can be a really big game changer, but you don't know until you actually try this and you start figuring it out. Now, some of you might have some constraints, like maybe you still have a day job right now. If that's the case, figuring out these time blocks is going to help you find more creative energy than you would if you were just flying by the seat of your pants, just saying, well, I guess I just create whenever I can. And instead, you're going to start having some boundaries in your life so you can communicate that to other people out there, and you can start saying, you know what, no, like Mondays, Tuesdays, and Wednesdays are my designated times after work when I work on my YouTube channel. And that way you can turn down the invitations for this, that, and the other. Even as wonderful as those invitations might be, your goal of your YouTube channel is bigger. And that way you can start prioritizing things. And now you're thinking like a CE. I'm going to be honest with you, as a systems coach, there's no other elegant way to get around figuring out time other than to live it. You have to do it. But to ignore it and pretend like it doesn't apply to you is going to be the bane of your existence. So I really encourage you to play with your schedule. There are people who pay me hundreds of dollars every month to do this, to hold them accountable to that. And if you can do this on your own, then I would encourage you to give it a try. But if you notice that you're like, I just can't do this on my own, that's when you start getting that personal data back that shows you, maybe I do need a coach like Mary. Maybe I do need to hire Mary to help me do that. And if you want that, you know where to find the links for all my offers and my website in the show notes below the video. Now, for all my chaos demons out there, yes, you can totally create in chaos if that is what you want to do. But I will tell you, your chaos will lead you to total burnout. Your chaos is the thing that kills your creativity over time. For some of you, your chaos is a little more insidious and it lets you believe that you can live with it in harmony. And then one day it just like whacks you in the back and it just takes everything out from underneath you, because there's only so much that you can sustain in chaos. Chaos can seem really thrilling for those of us who are not neurotypical. It gives us a really great dopamine rush. It can be a lot of fun to play with because you're like, whoa, everything's happening all at the same time. But what happens is that it will burn through your budget, it will burn through your energy, and you will end up wondering, what happened? And if you've noticed that you've started and stopped a lot of content in your business again and again, I see this with a lot of people's email newsletters. They start and then they just burn out, and then they try to start it again, and then it goes for a little while and then they burn out. And what happens is that chaos habit is the thing that's running the show, and they've never really figured out their time blocks. They've never figured out, where does the time come from to produce this thing? Where does the commitment, the habit come from to continue to produce this thing? That's just all added complexity that you don't need. What you need is to simplify. Simplification is going to show you just how good your actual content is or is not. So while you are solving this time equation for yourself and your life, you're going to discover that time is finite. There is only so much time. Maybe you still have a day job right now, which means that you definitely have finite time. You've got time maybe during your lunch hour. You've got time on nights and weekends. If you get up extra early in the morning, maybe you can finagle some time in there too. But you don't have all day every day. For those of us who work for ourselves 100% and own our own companies, we have the luxury of making our schedules exactly the way we want, which is totally a double-edged sword, because you can also make your schedule exactly the way you want. So if you don't hold yourself to your schedule, nobody else is there to do it for you. Because there's this finite quality to time for when you're producing your content, you're going to discover that there are certain things aesthetically that you're probably just not going to do from the get-go. You need to focus on your messaging and building good creative habits. Publish, publish, publish. That is the goal. That is the target. That is what you're working toward. Simplification is going to allow you to cut away all the extras. So maybe you followed an influencer who's like, you absolutely must have to do things like this, that, and the other. And it turns out that that's actually pretty complicated. Maybe you're still building the skills to make that happen. Maybe you're just not comfortable doing it yet. Maybe you're not so confident on the microphone yet. And it takes that one person with years of experience, one take, to record their things, but it takes you like 20 takes. That is a much different time equation, which means you're going to have to simplify something. And because your singular goal is to publish, to put your work out there, as wildly imperfect as it may be, the act of producing and publishing regular content for a sustained period of time, I would argue that sustained period of time needs to be at least 12 months. That's one full year. That sustained period of time with all your content going out regularly is going to produce data for you. That data includes everything from how do you work? What works better for you? Do you need to change the days of the week in which you make things? Figure that out. Does it show you how fast your list grows, how people are engaging with your content? Does it help you determine how your ideas are being conveyed and who you're going to work with, what offers you have for sale? Did you find better messaging throughout the year because you're getting comments back, because you're getting likes back, because you're hearing feedback from people who are able to engage with your content because you didn't publish just one thing, you kept going and you kept going and you kept going. In order to get that data, you need time. Time is the one ingredient in your business kitchen that you cannot manufacture falsely. We all collectively march through linear time. We abide by a 24-hour clock that helps us track the passage of time. We all follow the same Gregorian calendar of the year, and this is worldwide. So to check out of that system and say that time does not apply to you in your business is going to be the death of your content. And if you're not marketing, as the saying goes, if you are not marketing now, pretty soon you're going to have a lot of time for marketing because it means you're not going to have a business to market. So you need time in order to collect the data. One day of data is not enough. 2 days of data is not enough. 1 week of data is not enough. But if you get an entire year's worth of data, that is a powerful, powerful tool that you cannot purchase from someone else. You cannot purchase that from a coach. You cannot purchase that from a course. You cannot purchase that from your favorite influencer. And there is nobody in your fancy pants networking group who can give you that information either. It has to come from you. It has to come from your habit of creativity, the habit of producing regularly, and it has to come from continuing to do that in your pursuits without giving up. If you can do that for an entire year, you can start doing the fancier things, and you're probably going to discover that you find more time to do the things you need to do, partly because you get better at doing what you're doing. So that's going to shorten the amount of production time it takes for certain activities, but also you're probably going to be more confident. You're probably going to start making a little bit more money, which means you can afford more people to help you. And then the list goes on and on and on. And this is how everybody starts to grow. So the moral of the story is that mastering your time means that you are mastering your production for your content in your business. Remember that time is your friend. So with that, I hope you find a beautiful pack of Post-it notes this week and you start working on your ideal schedule and your time blocks. There is no system that anyone can give you that is going to work better than the one that you have tried out, that you have practiced, and that you know feels good to you and you're not resisting it. Otherwise, everything else is just going to start to feel really hard. And my hope for you is that it starts to feel really easy. Be sensible, be woo, and always, always be you.